This is the Paddock build, and it's also the biggest build we've taken on. Now let me take you back to the beginning.
It's a bit ropey, this one.
This whole build started with a message to Matt, and it just so happened
I just bought my dream house again.
and his dream house had an old paddock.
And now we have this.
I'm Mat Armstrong, and this is the final episode of the Paddock build.
Before we go into the inside, we have one more idea to complete the outside of this building.
And that is to install a green wall, so these little panels across here, and that is because there is a bit of a breeze coming through here, and this is going to help reduce it. So we hit up Evergreen Direct, and they sent us out a load of these green panels to put across that wall, and to install them we built a basic timber frame.
Phil's just made a nice frame to take this evergreen wall, flower wall. We don't know what it's called. If you know what it's called, put it in the comments below.
It's green and it makes a wall.
So basically,
It's got little eyes, and then the next one is going to go on the hooks. So each panel, chunk, chunk,
what
chunk,
interlocks
chunk, chunk.
into the next one.
Yeah, it's going to be really good.
Let's do it.
And it really was that simple. We screwed one into the timber behind and then locked it into the next. If you do want any of these panels, we will put the link in the description below, and they have also been kind enough to give us a little discount code.
Time to install our downlights. Our first job is to find them cables, and lucky enough we did a plan in the beginning of this build.
Making yourself a plan when you run your cables is so important, because when you board and plaster, there is just going to be no way of finding them again.
Phil has marked out the first lot of downlights, and we're also installing speakers. So Phil's marking them out right now. These holes are going to be cut out slightly wider.
And while you're marking, it's always important to give it the old knock test. Sounds good. But it's looking good, but
Let's cut these spotlights. Look at that, Phil's doing his job right. We've got a cable.
I didn't doubt myself for 1 second, and I'm not sure why Liam was doubting me. So yes, Liam is back, and he's drilling out for all of our downlights and retrieving all of our cables. So in this room, we went with 8 downlights, and that came down to the roof joists above. And we also had 3 more in the bathroom. This build is going to have a lot of smart devices. So I've got Charlie from Lightwaving.
We're going to be supplying smart switches, sockets and LED drivers.
And that is going to make this build epic. So what Charlie from Lightwave had brought us is some smart switches, which were actually needed for this build. And I'll explain that in a second. But he also brought some smart sockets. So because this building is so far away from the main house, everything can be controlled by their phone. So they can shut all the power off, or they can turn any lights they want on or off. Next job on our list is to install the door liner. Normally we'd install the door liner before we have it plastered, but time was of the essence on this job and the plastering needed to get done. So it was no big deal, I did it after. So we measured a width, cut down our liner, which comes as a kit. So we buy them in a particular width. We then cut it down to the size of our opening, and then we can assemble the kit to the widest opening, because we're having a standard 762 door. So we get that drilled out, get some screws in the head, which is the top part. I like to use 3 screws and some wood glue. Check the width of the top, and then we set the bottom of it to the exact same measurement, and then we check for square. And I'm setting all of this using the stops provided. And then once you get to this stage, we need to start fixing in position. And for me, I do 5 fixings in each leg, which are these bits, and also 1 in the head. This particular liner was not the best, I'm not going to lie. It was very twisted, so this took me a little while, because you need to make sure everything is parallel. So we pack out one side, get it fixed, make sure it's flat, and then we match the opposite side. So I drill through 5 fixings on each side, and then we just keep adjusting, because we want an identical opening all the way down, so we've got nice reveals when we install that door. Liner is square and level. Next job is to put on the architrave that goes around it. So on this build, Matt and Hannah have let us have free reign, so we're pretty much doing whatever we fancy. So in the UK, Oggy and Taurus are the two main styles that are used. So we went with OG or Oggy. And the way I install my architrave is to mark the head, which is the top part, cut my two 45-degree angles, and then I do the same with the legs. So I cut the 45s, flip them upside down and cut them down to the height I need. And I actually build my architraves on the floor, and then I stick them and pin them to the liner. That one's on. We're now going to do the exact same thing on this side. And just like the main room, it's the exact same process. And the pin gun I'm using, in case you're interested, is a 16 gauge pinner. Architraves are done. Before we move on to the skirtings, we're going to cut out our speakers, and we've bought this little contraption, and we was going to tell you how good it is. However, it is the scariest thing, and I do not recommend it. And if you come over here, off camera, there has been a minor incident. I'm sorry, Paint Warrior, for when you decorate. You're gonna need some filler. We are gonna use it to mark out for our cutout, and then I'll probably use the multi-tool. Not only did it damage the ceiling, this thing actually damaged my body. So I've got actual physical harm from that. So 100% do not buy it. Use yourself a multi-tool or even a pad saw. So with the holes cut, we get our speakers installed temporarily just to make sure everything fits as it should. As well as the inside ones, if you had a watch when we wired this, we've also got 4 external speakers. So we're going to get all of our brackets on, and we'll get them put on as well. So these speakers are Yamaha external speakers, and they are super easy to install. You literally screw the bracket on, click the speaker into position, and it's got 2 little knobs that you wind in, and it's job done. You know, like when we go to the restaurant and there's that lovely ambiance, that's what these are for. So once I'd finished reminiscing, it was time to get the last of the 4 external speakers mounted.
The garden room is now equipped with tunes. It's time to get our skirtings on.
So to match in with the architraves that we had previously installed, we are installing OG or Oggy skirtings. So these are going to tie in nicely. Now, something we're doing a little bit differently is we're not using any mechanical fixings. Everything's installed using CT1 and some CTEC Superfast. The reason for that is, if you remember at the beginning of the build, we've actually got 3 courses of brickwork behind most of the walls. So pinning into them just isn't going to be possible. And because the walls are nice and flat, that adhesive is going to be plenty to hold these in position. That's all our skirting's done. It's now time to move on to some flooring. We are having LVT, and I've got Jay from Flawless Flooring.
Yeah.
What is our first job, Jay?
Right, before we lay the floor, we've got to do a little bit of prep work.
So let's do some prep work. So that includes undercutting our door lining and architraves to get that flawless finish, and also keying up the floor with this copper sanding trowel.
First of all, I'm going to pin a string line right through the centre of the room.
And to do that, we measure 2 ends and then pull a chalk line, and now we've got a centre mark.
We have run that temporary string line straight through the middle of the room, and we're going to lay some planks in to make sure that we get even cuts either side.
So what Jay's doing here, he isn't actually installing the flooring, he's just assembling some loose or dry, and then he's putting it onto the mark, and what he's going to do is check how it's going to finish.
You don't want the boulder to come across the floor and have little triangles in your boulder, do you know what I mean? You want a nice sized plank.
So once Jay was happy with where everything fell, it was time to chalk out for our border. So we're having a lovely little border around this. So he marks out using a chalk line, and it's also going to tell him where to apply his glue. So he gets everything troweled out. I believe this is a 3mm notch trowel, and this adhesive is high temp. Because the sun's going to sit through those big doors all day, we need the glue to hold against high temperatures. And once it's glued out, it's time to start laying it in.
Now that we're all glued out, we're going to actually start installing this herringbone floor.
So Jay from Flawless Flooring is rapid at this stuff because he does this day in, day out. So if you blink, you'll miss it, because I did. Luckily the camera was rolling and Jay started to get the main infill laid out. So he's overlaying on that border because he's going to cut that after. He then trails out the second half, ready to get the last of the bulk of the install laid into that high temp glue. My man Jay has done the main infill on the floor. He is now going to attack the border. So our border is going to be a larger format. It's also going to have this black inlay, like so. So I'm going to let him mark that out and start cutting and installing. When we install a border like this, we're actually cutting it back slightly smaller than the piece we're going to be installing. So if your walls are a bit wibbly wobbly, that is going to take it out of it. So we chalk a line, so we've got a perfectly straight line when we install it. So what you look at is perfectly straight, and then he scribes the main piece in after. Before he does that, he gets his bevel tool out. That's just going to round off that edge to make it look factory, and we get in our black inlay. And you'll notice there's no adhesive again. So just like the inside, everything's loose laid first. Make sure everything fits as it should, cut it to size, and then we get it troweled out and glued down for a final time. So Jay has cut the border in. It isn't actually glued yet. So what he does it dry. That's what it's called, dry lathe. And now he's going to pull it out, glue it, and install it for the final time. So as you can see, it's getting dark outside, and we had delayed poor old Jay so much with the cameras. Time was running out, but lucky for us, he is super quick. So he got that border glued out using the same adhesive, and then it was in with the little black detail before installing that larger format border. So you may have noticed we have got no way of heating this room, so we've got Josh from Links AC, and he's going to be installing this.
An air-to-air heat pump which will provide heating and cooling here.
So with any garden room, air conditioning, in my opinion, is a must. And lucky for us, we've got Josh from Links AC, and he is going to install us a bad boy unit to keep this room usable. Josh has got the main mounting bracket for the inside unit on the wall, so now they're going to prepare that unit and then get it put on. So with the air conditioning unit, it comes with two small sections of pipe that need to be extended. So Josh got those extended, and then he let me use this weird tool to get them all straightened out before lagging them up, ready to be fed out of the core hole he had just done in our wall. So lucky for me, I got to be a part of that, and I got to feed it through out the back in all the bushes before Josh locked that unit into the plate he had installed and started working on the trunking around the back. That's the inside all done, but there is actually two parts. So this unit here is what does all of the work, and that is going to go round to the back of the building. So the lads got the unit pulled round the back and sat on a concrete pad, and got all of the pipe work and the electrics connected, ready for testing. That's the whole system installed, so Josh is now going to test to make sure that we haven't got any leaks. So Josh got out some strange tools and started doing some tests.
So what we're going to do is leave it for an hour now to make sure there is no leaks.
With the leak test complete, he then moved on to evacuating the pipe work to make sure there was no moisture in the system that would affect the refrigerant gas. And while he was doing that, we sat down and had a rest. The aircon is on. Massive shout out to HVAC Wholesale for supplying the materials today, and also a massive shout out to Links AC for doing all of the work. If you want some AC, hit the link in the description below. And that was it. We finally had our very own R2-D2 in the garden room.
We're going to start installing the bathroom, but our first job is to grout these tiles.
Before the grouting can be done, we need to remove all of the leveling clips, and they are literally just smashed off using a rubber mallet. And then Brad mixes up some grout, and you'll see soon enough, like every other job, it's soon passed on to someone else.
This is a wash boy, and a wash boy, I don't know what it does, but it keeps the brush clean while cleaning the grout.
The clue is in the name, Brad. Wash boy.
Time to install our extractor fan, and I've roped in DB to give us a hand.
Brad getting someone else to do a job again? Never. So poor old DB has been roped in to do Brad's job, and that was to install an extractor fan.
Just in time. Come on, mate.
What?
You can touch the electrics now, mate.
Liam's here again to save the day.
I think Dan has been hanging around with Brad too much. Poor old Liam's now ended up with Dan's job. So an extractor fan in a bathroom is necessary, so we have got one, and all that's going to do is keep the moisture levels down.
Now I've saved the day again, I'm going to leave the rest of the bathroom for Dan to finish off.
And Dan was soon back to his former self, tackling all of the jobs, and the first on that list was to install the toilet inside the little unit.
Now we're going to start installing the shower. First things first is get the control unit mounted on the wall.
So in this shower room, we are using a Triton Envy that we got from Easy Bathrooms. So this comes with a nice little controller that sits inside of the shower enclosure. Once that's fixed on, we can then move on to the rest of the shower unit. So there's a little valve that bolts to the wall, wire that up to the mains, and then we can put the head itself on. That also comes with a little handheld one for when you want to wash your fancy locks.
With that pipe now connected at the top of the field, we are moving down to connect these pipes into the bathroom.
As you can see, everybody was on site at this point. Mr. Mark Tiff come back, and it was finally time to start connecting up that bathroom inside so we could start getting everything turned on.
Now the wastes are done, we're moving on to installing the cold main.
So with the cold main, that gets installed onto the back of the building, and it's also going to get insulated, as you can see, before dropping down into 15mm and getting teed into those two feeds that go into the bathroom. So what Tiff's using there is a press fit gun, and that extra little valve you see on the end was for an outside tap that we decided to add after. With the outside complete, it was back inside where we could get our basin prepared and also get our tap installed onto the quartz top that's going onto the unit. So we get that fixed on, get the grub screws done up, and then we get the unit bolted back to the wall, get everything assembled.
Let's go, follow us. We're going to turn the water on.
Right at the stop clock.
Did you bring anything to get in?
Can you hear water? Yeah.
Listen.
We want it on full steam ahead.
See if you can beat it down there. Run.
I ain't doing that.
Fully watered up. Right, let's put that.
With the water switched on, we purged all of the air out using that outside tap that we had added. And finally, the building had water. You know what that is down there, didn't you?
Great success!
Once me and Dan had finished celebrating, it was back inside to fill everything up and make sure everything operated as it should with no leaks.
So we've now connected the drainage up to the existing drainage of the house, and we're now going to check that the pump from the garden room is working.
Thanks to Cotterill Civils for supplying this pump station, we could now make sure we could push you-know-what uphill.
It's a very big day on the build because we have Paint Warrior and Paint Warrior Junior decorating this build.
So when it comes to decorating, there isn't much Kevin from Paint Warrior and his son Len do not know. They are absolutely brilliant at this kind of stuff.
Before spraying the ceiling, we're actually going to be protecting the downlights using some plastic bag and masking tape to make sure that we don't get no overspray on it.
Like Brad just said, this is getting sprayed. So Kevin and Len are getting everything prepped, so everything's getting protected, and they've also given it a quick sand down before mixing up some primer for the spray machine and then roping in Matt to spray the first wall, which is kind of surprising because Matt never wants to help us, but he's happy to help Kev. So once Matt had got bored of that first wall, Kev moved on to the rest, done all of the walls, and then it was on to the ceiling. This isn't the top coat, it is just primer. Because we've got brand new plaster, you have to make sure you prime it first.
All the plastering is sealed. We've raked back all of the cracks. We're sealing the cracks with the Zinza guards.
And now when that dries, we're going on with the easy fill.
So with any timber build, there is a high likeliness that it will shrink back on the plaster and you will get some hairline cracks. It's not unusual to happen within the first year, and that's exactly what happened to us. So we got that raked out, and then Kev got it filled back using some easy fill, and he also cleaned up any of the corners because he is super fussy and he likes everything to be absolutely perfect.
Now that the ceiling's fully dry, we're actually going to go around and put back all the spotlights and the speakers.
At this stage, the ceiling had had 3 coats of paint, and Kevin had asked us to put everything back so that we could see what the lighting's like on the walls. That way you can see what the finish is going to be like.
The ceiling is complete, the woodwork is prepped and primed. Now we're going to get some colour on the wall.
So Hanna actually picked this colour, handed it over to Kev, and he had it made up in the brand of paint he likes to use. And he gets everything cut in first using his very own brushes. So I don't know a lot about decorating, but I have tried his brush and it felt wonderful. So if you like painting, go check out Paint Warrior's brushes. I think that's what makes him so good, if I'm honest.
This is the last piece to the bathroom, which is the shower glass. And it's really light.
And the reason it's so heavy is because it's a full enclosure, and we picked one that's going to match the shape of the shower room. Nothing. I've got to have to look at the instructions. Once I'd read those, I wasted some time explaining it to Brad.
Yeah, sweet.
20 mil. Within the next 2 to 3 working days, there'll be an opening at the Home Improvements channel. You must be skilled and not an absolute fool. I then sent Brad on a pointless exercise so I could get him away from me so I could get on with the real work, and that was to install the first 2 rails of this enclosure. So you start by fixing the 2 rails to the walls, and that's going to take the first pieces of glass. That's the 2 main rails installed. Now I'm hoping it is smooth sailing with the rest. And it turns out it was smooth sailing. The first 2 sections of glass slid into position. I then locked them in using some retaining screws that were supplied with the kit, put the caps on, and then I could put the 2 bars that went top and bottom. So these eventually are going to carry the glass door. So these are the hinges for the door. We put on some of the waterproofing strips before sliding the door into position and tightening everything down. Not too much though, because it is glass. And the last and final job to the shower is to put the handle on. And just like the door, we don't want to be over tightening these screws. I'm not going to smash. Yeah, get out of there, I've got to take myself a little cheeky shower. That's the bathroom suite complete. Before we finish, we do need to get it masticed, but I've also got to install some accessories that we picked up from Easy Bathrooms. And we're going to be starting with the toilet roll holder. You just sit down and if it's a bad day. These accessories are super easy to fit, couple of screws, and then you just tighten up the Allen keys. Now that that's on, I'm going to put another little loop here for some hand towels, and then I'm going to put a bigger bar here for some big towels so you can wash off all that swag. And who wants to be covered in swag? So we got that bar installed and the bathroom was starting to come together. Next job on the inside is to get a door installed on that shower room, because without one, it's just a little bit strange. And if you don't have a door, that's nothing against you, but personally, I like a little bit of privacy when I'm in a bathroom. So we're going with an oak cottage style door here, just ties in with the rest of the room, and we're installing 3 hinges on that. That's just my preferred method. Some people only install 2, and there's nothing wrong with that either. That's our hinges all fitted. Now we're going to mark out for our handle and our lock. So we start off by setting out for our handle. This is a separate handle and lock combination. Sometimes they're combined. So we drill that out use our router to get the depth for our plate, and then we could drill through for our spindle. Once that's all fixed down, it's time to move on to the lock itself. So it's pretty much the same process, but it's a lock. So this is a thumb lock. Like I say, you can get these combined, but we like the idea of them being separate. Once they're installed, we can get that fixed to the frame, and we can drill out for the receivers that are going to take the lock and the latch itself. With both of those plates ready and installed, the last job on this door is to install the stops. So I set mine using a credit card and just pin them in. One last job in the bathroom is to box in this little shower unit. So we've called in Jake, and Jake is going to be showing you how to cover it up. So we actually met Jake while we was at Matt's house, and what better way to strengthen a friendship than to make him do work that you should be doing. So we got Jake to make up this quality little box section, and as you can see, he really does know what he's doing. And he's also come up with a fantastic idea for this, for the front. Because this shower unit needs to be serviceable, you can't just box it in with no access. So we cut up a door using some MDF, and then he installed some really strong magnets. So now the front of this box can be removed.
So that's the boxing done. I'm off to do my own work.
Now it's time to actually seal the bathroom, and this makes it a lot more usable, and we're using no other than Martin Coots.
When it comes to masticing and sealing, Martin knows pretty much everything there is to know, and he does one of the best jobs you'll ever see. So we could have had a go at this ourselves, but if you ask me, it's always worth getting a proper mastic man to do this job, because it's the finish that everyone's gonna see. And as you can see there, that little section is not an easy bit to do, and he did an amazing job of it. Once that was done, we can show you how cool all of that smart switching is. So these control all of the LEDs around the building, but they also have multiple functions like dimming and changing the colours on the light bar we put outside. And they can also be engraved with anything you like. With all that done, Kevin starts to get wrapped up inside. We do the final touches, and just when we thought it was all over, Matt come in and surprised us by giving us an Audi R8. How amazing is that? What better way to end an epic build? Lovely rain that we never get. The weather has changed again, and it's slightly raining, but we love it. It's now raining in the UK. The weather's fantastic, and we can't wait to take our trousers off and put some shorts and t-shirts on. Yes, the build is epic, but more importantly, we got to make some new lifelong friends and worked with amazing people.
Hey, you're champions away.
Thanks for watching. Remember, like, subscribe, and catch us on the next epic build.